welcome to Let's Talk, your call-in radio show. We're missing Paul, I'll have to say.
Yeah, he's in Spain.
That's right.
Granada, last I heard.
And, so today, your hosts are Shelley Rugg and
Stephen Hurwitz. Hello.
Hi. And we have a guest with us today, Kristen, your last name McDonald? Yes, Kristen McDonald. Say hi.
Hi, everyone.
And today our topic is climate change and kids. And I know we've been following Greta Thunberg. She's been quite an inspiration.
She sure has. 15-year-old kid with a sign in front of the parliament in Sweden, now 16-year-old, and taken the world by storm in 1 year. Amazing.
Yeah, quite.
Yeah.
And, you know, really stirred the imaginations of, you know, young people all over the world and getting them involved.
I think we got one now that wants to get involved.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I pushed the wrong one. Here we go. And we have a caller. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Felipa, and I'm here with...
My name's Kaya, and I'm a junior at Nevada High.
Well, welcome, Felipa and Kaya.
Yeah, hello.
We're just getting started talking about this subject, and I'm really thrilled to have some young people calling in to share their perspectives. Did you two both join the climate strike?
I participated in the strike on the 20th here in Novato. I rode my bike to the city hall and met with about 60 other people, most of whom were older. And then we organized and took a walk past each of the banks who are on the Dirty Dozen list. They invest in fossil fuels. And we chanted, and then there was a speaker from the Sierra Club afterwards. And it was a great experience.
Excellent.
Terrific.
Well, you know, I'm curious to hear directly how you're feeling about the situation right now.
Kaya? Personally, I think a lot is, like, happening right now, and, like, all these strikes and so many more people are joining this year. And I think things are, like, going pretty well. And, like, I'm seeing a lot more, like, as people, like, talking to other people, like, get out there, like, start striking. And I think it's, like, pretty great because I've been, like, following, like, you know, all these climate strikes and, like, people, like, activists for, like, a few years now, and I can really see it growing.
Is there a lot of talk in high school about this thing?
Yeah, there's, like, posters in our bathrooms and on our walls, and so everyone really knows about it.
Excellent.
A lot of the teachers have been advocating for the movement, and there were posters in most of my classes, and it didn't directly suggest that we participate in this strike, but it at least got the word out, and our school, unfortunately, did not excuse the absences. So even if our parents gave notice, it was an unexcused absence, which impacts some people's transcripts. But I guess it wouldn't be an official strike if they did excuse it. Yeah, that's something that some students are going through.
Something
here.
like that might be a good mark on your transcript.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
striking out for the environment.
For sure.
So do you feel like that your involvement gives you more hope for the future?
I definitely do. Being just the energy of the whole crowd with a common priority and values it's beautiful. It's heartwarming, and it motivates me to continue protesting.
Mm-hmm. But often you feel, like, isolated and, like, what are we going to do? Like, I have no power. Like, I'm so young and I can't do anything. And then when you go out to these strikes, you really can, like, see how many people, like, care about the same issue as you, and how, like, there is, like, we're working on, like, getting stuff done and, like, improving.
Sure power in numbers, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for, you know, doing what you're doing. And
Felipa, what do you got going?
What do I got going?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this subject?
I think that this is an opportunity for the youth to get involved because no one can deny that it will affect them. And I see a lot of really disempowered youth, and I think that's a product of our society, the format of our school system. And I'm seeing a lot of people speak out because we're united. This is a fight that we all have. It's all of our fight. It's the fight for the world.
Right. I want to talk about disempowered youth. What does that look like to you when someone's disempowered?
I mean, I see disempowered youth in the classroom. People are afraid to give answers when the teacher asks because they're afraid of criticism. And I think that's because our society is so competitive. The capitalist system creates a lot of, hierarchy, and then the underdogs are afraid to speak up. And I do believe that our government benefits from that, the docile people, because we don't exercise their democracy, and it makes their job easier, remaining in power.
Right.
And I think that people need to exercise their democracy and their rights, and the power does belong to the people. And us youth, we are the next generation who are inheriting a very messy situation. So,
right.
Yes, it's very nasty when I look into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard to feel adequately informed because there's so much disinformation that's spread that, you have to really be mindful of where the information's coming from. What's the source? And what does that source care about? What are their values? Yeah. And it can be deceiving because they can have names that sound friendly and like they care about the environment when in fact they're completely the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Greta was asked, what was the one thing we can do right now? And her answer was create awareness of the situation. I see her like a fire alarm. She's coming up. Yeah. What I admire in her is that she has been very disciplined in her message. Everybody wants a piece of her, and she said, no, this is my message. And she stuck with it. And she's got that one thing. It's like, this is a crisis. If you don't believe that the house is burning down, then you're not looking around. And it's an emergency. Get with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really like that about her.
Yeah. I think that she demonstrates that no one's too small or too young to make a difference. And a lot of kids feel like the only way they can get to a point of success or influence in their life is by staying in school. Like, stay in school, kids, Greta is showing that by boycotting school, she is making a difference. She's making headlines, and she's inspiring youth and forcing the system to recognize her. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Greta is saying, though, I should be in school. You're making me do this.
Right.
Says I should be studying, but I have to do this because you won't. I mean, I think that's your point of view.
About this, like, it's impacting like our childhoods and like our just looking in the future. Like, there's so much we have to do right now, and like all of us like have to like focus on like who's gonna like start like figuring out like different like biodegradable things, and like what are we going to do with all the plastic in our oceans, and like the meat industry and the oil industry. Like, we have to figure all of that out.
Yeah, I kind of feel like the trouble is way at the top in our national government. Our federal government is basically being run by corporations, and they want to protect all of their rights to basically rape the planet at the expense of everyone and everything. And so that's just so key here, that we elect new people that actually care about the planet and the people and animals on it.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question for the next generation, so to speak, because I think that one of the reasons that the planet is in such bad shape is that they've got something called a consumer society, and we're literally consuming the planet. We're taking raw materials of the planet and we're turning it into really unnecessary stuff. And I'm just wondering if your generation, the next generation, is willing to do without that unnecessary stuff. If we're really going to change the way the world works, we're going to have to give up an awful lot of things we take for granted. How do you feel about that?
I personally am willing to give up many consumer goods for the good of the planet and for the health of us all. I value my health and the health of future generations more than my personal convenience and luxury in the moment. I know that is a challenge. It's easy to reach for, a packaged food item, and I do to save time, but not without thinking about it. And it's going to be a challenge. A lot of people don't think the way that Kaya and I do. Yeah.
Kaya, are you willing to give up a lot of this, what we consider our due? We have expectations.
Yeah, I've been like buying things secondhand, thrifting, giving up fast fashion, and like not buying into big corporations, using reusable Tupperware, making sure everything I buy is like mostly organic and like conscious. Because a lot of people don't have that luxury or can't afford it or don't like have that option, and I feel like people who do should really utilize it.
I'd like to say something about this topic. This is Kristen. I really appreciate, and I do see how so many young people are much more conscious about consumption, our consumption of petrochemical products of all types. A lot of the activism around plastics has started with youth efforts, and I think it shows that young people often have more flexibility in their outlook on what they need in their lives, whereas as we get older, we sometimes get set in our ways and feel like it's hard to change. But I think that this is something to really question. As the older generation, people of general middle years, I can say, I'm looking around the room here in the studio.
I think it's middle.
It's upon us too to lead the way here. And I speak as a parent of a young child, and I really feel how important it is for me to set an example in many different realms of life, but particularly in consumption. For the next generation in general, it's important for them to see older people making difficult choices. And just as, I was influenced by my parents who were anti-Vietnam War activists in the 60s, and the human the movements of the 60s around the environment and human rights really did help pave the way for many people who are now speaking up and taking action and working to make the planet a better place. And I think that was a really important generational kind of legacy. And I feel that it's really important that people of the current adult generation, I guess we could say, leave a legacy of simplicity and less consumption, and making do with less. And I don't know if people are familiar with the work of Stephen Jenkinson, but he writes a lot about this, about conscious elderhood and what we can be leaving to the next generations in these times. And this is one of his big messages: simplicity.
We only have 3 minutes left of our lunch period.
I will wrap up in a simple way and just say, this we need as older people also to be making difficult choices so that next generations see that it can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So wrap it up, girls.
Thanks so much for having us. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for joining us, because I know you have a lot to say, and there's a lot of intelligence going on there.
Yeah, and thanks for what you're doing, and know that there's a lot of adults who have your back.
Thank you. It's good to hear something positive from the past generation.
Hey.
Cursing millennials.
we have played a big part in West Marin, really. I came here in the late 70s, and there was a transformation of our generation came in. We really transformed West Marin, the Point Reyes area. I would say the Dance Palace is probably the leading example of one of our legacy.
Well, and I think the legacy is that we kept a freeway from coming out here.
I did not know that.
A long time ago. I don't know. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for calling in. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye, Felipe and Kaya. If anyone else would like to call in, you're listening to Let's Talk on KWMR 90.5 and Point Reyes Station. The number to call is 415-663-8492. And we're talking about climate change and the impact it has on kids and families, especially.
You know, I'd like to just mention something about these Friday strikes and school strikes, and that is that I think the whole point of it is to be in defiance. And, you know, my generation, you talk about Vietnam, there was a lot of defiance. We were not accepted by the society at large, and we did make sacrifices. I mean, you know, drop out. A lot of us dropped out. I know I did. Dropped out of those tracks that we had been programmed to be in. And so, you know, when somebody says they went on the Friday strike without permission of the school, I say, fantastic. I'm glad they didn't give you permission, because you did something. You took a stand and you took some risks. So I think that, you know, I think that we should applaud those kids who went, even though they might have been penalized by it.
Right. Yeah. So, Kristen, as a parent of a young child, how's this impacting you and your world?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I'm very concerned about, you know, the future of humanity, the planet, of you know, living beings and the ecosystems that support us and that support all life on the planet. And I have been, you know, my whole life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I
absolutely.
grew up with activist parents, and, you know, started working in environment issues from a very young age. And I think it's really important to encourage people to get involved, or to show that there's ways to get involved. You know, whether it's attending a protest or a march, and just doing simple actions around the home. I mean, kids connect, kids get it, you know. And even my 5-year-old son, you know, climate change is a bit of an abstract concept, but he gets that we want to protect animals and we want to protect water, and you can see when we take him to marches or protests that he gets the energy and he gets that there's something important. And so that's one thing that I'm doing as a parent, as showing him that we have these ways of speaking out. We have democracy in this country. We have ways to say no when we see something that we don't like, or say yes when we see something we do like, and that we can do it together, and that's powerful. As a parent, when I think about the future, you know, it puts an extra edge, I would say, to my concern that I do have a young one that I'm personally taking care of, and that will be here to see, you know, the impacts of what we're doing, you know, with our resources much longer than I will. I hope, right? That's the plan, at least. So it does put an extra edge for me, but I have to say that personally, you know, I would be involved anyway. But I do know that many parents develop more of a concern or find themselves taking more responsibility or taking more action, or grandparents, because they have this connection to the younger generation.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful thing to see as well.
It sounds also to me that parents and children have a conversation that they both can contribute to. It's not like, oh yeah, my kids, they're into things I just don't understand, etc. It seems like talking about the future and talking about the planet, etc., gives you something to share in terms of shared concern, etc.
That's right. Yeah, and in my family, that is something that we sit around talking about. Whether it's my parents and my sisters or the family that I'm now raising.
Yeah. I looked up the top 10 things you can do about climate change because I think it's important to talk about it. That's one of the things that we need to do.
Yes.
That's in the top 10 list. I'm really interested in action, and especially big action that we can even take on as a community as a whole.
I love that.
Yeah. So, number 1 on this list, demand climate solutions this election. So, find out who you're voting for and what their stand is. And we need to vote in people who are going to actually do something about climate change. 2, use energy wisely. And while you do that, you can save money. That's supposed to encourage you. So, and, I'm going to segue real quick here because I read about Albert Strauss of Strauss Dairy. Mm-hmm. And he's been working with his dairy to reduce greenhouse gases for a while now. And he has this interesting system that takes the manure and it processes it, separates out the solids from the liquids, and then the solids become fertilizer. The liquids actually create electricity. And so he not only has enough electricity to run his entire operation, but he sells his extra to PG&E.
Fantastic.
So, thinking about what we can all do differently.
Thinking about electricity, though, we do starting to have options to be able to choose green energy. We can actually say, hey, I want my house lit with green energy. And the more people that do that, the more support we're giving to creating more. I can't remember what the percentage is, but there is a percentage of PG&E's power that comes from solar. And then, of course, you got marine clean energy. Yeah,
so that's number 3. Get charged up with renewable energy. 4, eat for a climate-stable planet. Eat more meat-free meals. Buy organic and local whenever possible. Don't waste food and grow your own.
Tomatoes.
And number 5, what we're doing right now, start a climate conversation. It's important to talk about it because we may be surrounded by people who are very aware, but it's amazing how many people still aren't really tuned in to the situation. So we need to talk about it with each other. 6, green your commute. Take public transportation, ride a bike, car share, switch to electric or hybrid, and fly less. And, of course, Greta demonstrated her stand by actually coming to America on a boat and didn't fly.
Zero emissions boat.
Right. Yes. And I guess, it takes longer. It's more expensive, but we have to think about what is this about? It's not about us being comfortable and things being easy. It's about an emergency.
I think that has to do with expectations. And, I'm looking into the future, and I think I'm actually pretty dark about it all. And I see if we truly want to lick this thing, we're going to have to make some very stark choices. And one of them is our expectations right now. Oh, yeah, it's a family gathering in New York City. Let's all go. And we can expect that if we have the money to do that, then we have the ability and the right to do it. Hey, let's make some tickets and go. Those kind of expectations have built that's the consumer society that's gotten us to this place where,
Yeah, we have to change, like it or not. I mean, it's really, we can act like it's a choice, but really we must. Number 7, consume less, waste less, enjoy life more. I also shop at the thrift store quite often, and mostly at the thrift store. Number 8.
You look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. Number 8. Yeah, I got some really great stuff at the Novato Goodwill. Invest in renewables and divest from fossil fuels. The whole stock market thing, and there's a lot of money in oil. That's why it's taking over the world. It has taken over the world, and it's destroying so much of the planet. So if you're in the fossil fuel business, time to think about how you're going to change that up.
I just want to talk about that for a second, if you don't mind interrupting.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about these little things that we can do, and I think we all should do it because I think, and I think Greta also said small things. Just do the small things that you can do, but let's not be fooled that this is our responsibility in some ways, because there are decision makers, people with a lot of power who've made an awful lot of money that are making larger decisions than we are, that have gotten us in this spot. 25 men who control the largest fossil fuel companies in the world, just 25.
That's why, like it or not, we have to get involved in politics. We have to talk to our leaders, and we have to vote, and we have to do research. We have to really engage in that system. Number 9, support or join youth-led movements. Well, I think we're doing that too. And 10, get politically active and vote. Very important. Let's just take a little station break here and let everyone know you're listening to Let's Talk on KWMR 90.5, Point Radio Station, 89.9 in Bolinas, and 92.3 in the San Geronimo Valley. KWMR is supported by our listener members and by Dance Palace Community and Cultural Center, located at 5th and B Streets in Point Reyes Station. Members supported, the Dance Palace offers classes, events, and facility rentals for all the communities of West Marin. Membership information, volunteer opportunities, and schedules available at 415-663-1075 or online at dancepalace.org. KWMR is also supported by Drake's Bay Oyster Company, who continues to keep on shuckin', providing sustainably farmed oysters from the waters of the Pacific Coast to restaurants, markets, and oyster bars in Northern California. Employee-owned and grown. More at 415-669-1149. Pacific Gas and Electric reminds listeners of the importance of creating a 5-minute plan in order to evacuate their homes immediately if needed. Evacuation orders indicate the need to leave right away to avoid getting stuck. Preparing a 5-minute plan gets one's family ready to go quickly if leaving is necessary. Here are steps to be taken in order to be able to leave in 5 minutes. Mark evacuation routes on map. Plan where to go if you can't come home. Put together an emergency supply kit. Explain the plan to children. Practice leaving home in 5 minutes. Oh boy, okay, back to our topic, which is climate change and kids. And I'm Shelley Rugg, and Stephen Hurwitz is here, along with Kristen McDonald. And
the cellist. Oops.
Yeah, but no cello playing right
I
now.
happened to bring it into the station today because I had a rehearsal earlier, and Lions got a little confused about that. But maybe next time I'll play the cello.
All right.
Yeah, you have to come on Secret Sauce and play the cello.
Okay.
Yeah, we like live performance.
I'm interested, Shelley and Kristen. We're here on the radio station, and the media is starting to make this a bigger deal, but the propaganda in the opposite direction, the advertising industry, for every dollar that's spent getting the message around, maybe $100 is spent telling people to buy, essentially. And so, are we going to be able to? Disturb that? I mean, we're up against a pretty big.
I think we have to, Stephen. I think we can't waffle on it. We can't think, well, should we or shouldn't we? We just have to decide we must, and then start taking action. And like you were saying, that Greta suggested, take some small action. I mean, it's a great way to get the ball rolling. What about you, Stephen? What are you doing differently in your?
Well, I'll tell you. It seems the low-hanging fruit is to drive less, and I'm trying to gang up more things and do more things at the same time. For me, I live in the country, pretty isolated. So if I need something, I need to go to either Nevada or Petaluma, which is 20 minutes away, a drive. So one thing that means I don't go as often, because living in the country, you have to do more. I'm trying to make more happen when I do go, so I don't have to go as much. So that's one thing that I'm trying to do, and
yeah, we have a electric cargo bike in my family, and what I'm trying to do is use that for all of my local getting around.
How does that do on
between Inverness Park and Point
Climbing
Reyes?
Hills? Is it good?
It does great.
Oh, yeah. I might do that.
So this is an option for folks. The e-bike movement is really taken over, and we have solar at my house, so it's a solar charged electric bike that gets me around locally, and 50 pounds of kids and groceries or library books.
That's very encouraging.
Yes, it feels great. So
yeah, it's good for your health.
And it's good for your health, too.
Very good. We have a caller. Caller, you're on the air. Is this Ruby?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Ruby. Welcome, and thanks for calling in.
Of course. I'm so glad to be here.
Very good. So, of course, we've been talking about climate change and the climate strike and all of that.
Who are you, Ruby?
What's been your involvement?
Yeah, so just a little about me. Well, I live in Point Reyes Station. I've been living there my whole life, never moved. Went to Papermill Creek, then West Marin for kindergarten through 8th grade, and now I've been at the Branson School over in Ross, freshman through senior year. I'm a senior right now, and I'm currently just sort of hiding in one of my dean's offices so I can find a nice, quiet place to join the conversation.
Nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Ruby Clark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so what did you want to share with us today?
Yeah, so on the Branson campus, I'm one of the leaders of our school's Environmental Action Committee. And so 2 weeks ago, we were actually able to organize over 30 students to come to San Francisco to join and take part in the climate strike and the climate march that occurred. And it was just a really great opportunity to have
That's great.
so many students be able to come and see the power, because I feel like when we were all there and we were all leaving, it was just such a hard transition to leave such a strong space where you felt really hard to go back to the classroom. And then I personally had to take like a math quiz in my calculus class right afterwards. And it's just really interesting to see, for me, the juxtaposition between the political world that youth are choosing to navigate and then the institutional and structural academic world that youth are being forced to navigate. And seeing how those two spaces can feel really different for people.
Right. And it kind of puts a slant on the perspective, like what matters. And right now, our environment really needs our attention. We need to care about it.
How did the Branson School handle those absences?
So we actually worked with faculty because
we were sending all these also emails, obviously, and so all the teachers were like, oh, hey, I can know that this is going on. So they actually made it a field trip, so all the absences were excused absences.
Nice.
So everyone who went was excused from class, so there wasn't any problem with like parents getting mad or anything with students.
That's great. Yeah, we heard that at the Novato High School they did not excuse the absences.
Have your parents been supportive, Ruby?
Yeah, definitely. My mom works at the county. She's one of the aides for Supervisor Dennis Rodoni of District 4. And I know that personally the environment is really important to her, so it's been really fun to see her being able to really put that passion into practice in terms of policy, in terms of making sure that everyone who's interested in having this conversation has a space at the political table as well. So it's really nice to have a mom who's so supportive. I know like a year and a half ago, there's this thing called Plastic Free July, and it's basically like you try and not use any plastic, or you try and reduce your waste drastically for 1 month. And we did that together. And after you do it for a month, then it becomes habit, and then every single time you go to purchase something again, it's a conscious decision, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that was super impactful for me.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because so you go into the market and so many packages have plastic. So how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it can be kind of hard, but it also, personally, I don't really like shopping. Shopping for food can be kind of like, I don't know, hard. I'm like, I don't know what I want to eat. So having some sort of limitation can make the actual act of shopping, it does take more time and it does take more concentration, but it also makes it way more engaging, right? Like, when was the last time you went to the store and you're like, oh, yeah, I had so much fun, you know? When you can make the entire meal that you wanted to make, all buying things in bulk and not using any plastic and using minimal amounts of glass and maybe only some aluminum, like, that can be super satisfying and super gratifying.
Nice.
And it's also been really amazing because then it's like secondarily really impacted the ways in which I like treat my body and the ways in which I eat and engage with the physical world, because like now I haven't had Flaming Hot Cheetos, which is one of my favorite snacks. The Limon Flaming Hot Cheetos is the best. And I haven't had them because like every time I really want them, I'm like, but is that plastic bag that's going to be around for generations really worth me being satisfied right now? Because I'm going to forget this craving, but I know that in 500 years that bag's not going to be forgotten.
I want to speak.
So I feel like it's also just really changed the way that I like interact with myself and understand what like gratification looks like and stuff.
Right.
It's a really interesting process.
Fantastic.
I think what Ruby's saying is so important, and I had this experience the week of the climate strike. We attended as a family, and it was very emotional for me to be there, and it was wonderful to see how young people were bringing their energy and their talents and their enthusiasm and their just tirelessness. You know, we went to the San Rafael strike, and the chanting for hours. And no flagging in their enthusiasm. And one thing that happened to me was that after that experience, I felt like I don't want to drive. I really, like, I had this visceral experience every single time I got into the car. And I realized it was this direct result of like kind of immersing myself in the issues and really feeling it and really feeling how critical and important it is, a crisis.
Right.
And then that choice to drive becomes, or not drive, becomes a lot easier. Just like Ruby was saying, it's easier to choose to not eat the Flaming Hot Cheetos when you're really immersed in the reality and the awareness around the problems with plastics. And, plastics are kind of the next frontier for the petrochemical industry and, could be responsible for up to 30% of global emissions by 2050 if we don't curb our consumption of plastics, which in many ways is very easy to do. But you don't think of it as easy unless you kind of take the time, like Ruby and her mom did, to kind of really examine it.
Right.
I think a good beginning in just like using driving, etc., is we don't have to get radical about it at this point. All we have to do is think about it and do it less. If everybody just did it less, it would have an amazing impact, just like drive less. you can still go there or share a car. It'll add up to something huge.
There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. We use that term a lot in my realm where I work. I mean, in just the plastics, for example, the straws, the single-use plastic bags, the really cheap stuff that's actually really hard to recycle. Like, we need to get rid of that stuff first, and then we can move up the scale into the stuff that's a little harder to figure out how to replace. But start where it's easy and do it as widely as possible. Yeah,
and support businesses that do their darndest to try to also, curb their plastic use and that are working on this important issue.
Mm-hmm. I can't remember where it is. Does anybody remember? But there are some companies now that are not selling water in plastic bottles. I know that every time I go into a store now and I see the bottles of plastic, it makes me, cringe a little bit. But there are some companies that have decided that they aren't doing it. And I can't remember who it is. It's not 7-Eleven, by the way.
Yeah. What would they be able to sell if they weren't doing that?
Well, we got about 15 minutes left in the show. If you want to call in and join the conversation, the number to call is 415-663-8492. We're talking about climate change and youth, kids, parents, grandparents.
Hey, Ruby, at the Branson School, do they have classes in things like cooking and health and good food versus junk food, etc.? Do you guys talk about that in school?
For freshman and sophomore year, you have to take a mandatory. It's sort of like it's basically a health class, but it's called human development, and the goal is to be a lot more expensive than just like, wow, how does your body work? And so a lot of it is understanding emotional well-being and then physical well-being. And so we do talk about how to treat yourself properly, how to eat. I think there's room to expand that, but I think it's also difficult given the time constraints and how really why is it that we're only teaching people ways to exist beneficially for 30 minutes every day for 2 years, and then the rest of the school day is dedicated to something else that might not necessarily be as directly beneficial to them.
What do you do with calculus?
I'm trying to figure that out right now.
Well, I guess you don't do anything with calculus, right, Stephen?
Me, no.
Me neither.
But I do like algebra. I still use algebra to find unknowns.
Yeah.
Very good.
The main thing for us is we have a student and faculty-run garden on campus.
Nice.
And that's really cool. A couple of years ago, one of the seniors made an aquaponics project at the end of the year. So it's really, they have it's a really well-organized system to help water all the plants. And we also have some LEED-certified buildings. But I think the main thing is it's easy to establish one thing in the moment and be like, okay, we've created this. But I think the main thing is that environmentalism, it's not a thing you've bought or a thing that you are, it's a thing that you do, right? It's not what was that big thing you did last Tuesday, but it's what's the small things that you do every day. And so I think it can be really hard to institutionally change the small minutia, because that's where a lot of stuff slips through the cracks, and that's where a lot of really big change can happen super easily. But it's also sort of the hardest, because those are those little things that people maybe aren't thinking of, aren't aware of, or it's hard to give up.
Are there specific actions that the Environmental Action Committee, I think that's the name of your student group, is trying to take or is taking that are focused on the campus of your school?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we currently have this thing on campus called the Snack Shack, and it's basically what you'd imagine. It's like a 7-Eleven, but it's school run, and so all the proceeds go back to the school and back to funding people on scholarships and stuff like that. But with that, pretty much everything in there is packaged in plastic. And so that is a big waste producer on campus. So one of the things that we are really hoping to be able to do this year is we're not going to get rid of the Snack Shack because people would be really mad. But the main thing I want to do is have there be a bulk section in there so that people really are at least given the option to have some sort of snack and still be environmentally friendly at the same time.
That's so awesome.
I think the only thing you can get is like maybe a cookie.
If you want to avoid the waste.
And some Red Hot Doritos.
Well, that sounds like a really great project. I wish you well with that.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, and you can do that at your school. Then you can also impact businesses in your own community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, how are you feeling about your future? Do you have hope or some other emotion?
I think the way that I would describe myself is I'm definitely not a pessimist. I don't think I could personally function if I assume sort of the worst. So I think by virtue of needing to survive, I'm like an optimist by necessity. It doesn't mean I'm not skeptical, but it means that like I know that we can all do a whole lot better than we're currently doing now. And so I think what comes to me is that like the future, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of potential stress. It's like I know, especially for like people my age, like it's like, oh yeah, I'm stressed. I have a presentation I need to do tomorrow in marine biology. I just took a test in math. I need to read 50 pages for my English class. But the thing that's also on our minds is, oh wow, I don't know if my house is going to be here in 100 years. Oh, I don't know. In my marine biology class, we're like, oh wow, yeah. It's a baseline understanding that the ocean is going to change pH drastically, right? And just because like, especially in my marine biology class, it's been really concerning, just all the things that I feel like I should have known a lot sooner, and I shouldn't have had to take a specific course to understand not just how the ocean is changing, but also how much it's already changed and how much it's going to change. And so I think it can be sort of stressful, but at the same time, having avenues today where we can all get together and make a change is incredibly empowering. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and we agreed that like sometimes it's hard to write your homework, and sometimes you just want to sit down and write a manifesto to the world. And so I think
I would give you extra credit if I were your teacher for the manifesto, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's like frustrating and hard to feel like you're expected to do so much more than just succeed academically, and also being sure that we have the capacity to succeed far more than just academically, but actually strategically in the way that sort of the world is organized today.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that you're, being mindful and taking some leadership in your school and showing up and being positive about it.
When I was growing up, I was part of the movement in Oregon to protect ancient forests, and I remember a lot of my friends. Which is ongoing, of course, it's not done. But a lot of my friends at that time were dropping out of high school to go sit in trees and protest. And I very much honored that choice. And for me, it was an active choice to stay in school and to develop my mind and my intellectual abilities and my credentials, because I felt like that was the path for me in activism. To actually, less than just using my body, actually be developing a path towards leadership. And I don't know if that helps you at all, Ruby, but I just wanted to mention that, I think what you're going through is maybe something that many generations can relate to, that sort of sense that,
I've got confidence in Ruby.
Yes,
I'm listening, and I when we're talking about climate change and kids, it
gives you hope.
I think keep it up, kid.
So, how do you encourage the adults in your world? Do you ever run into people who scoff at the idea of climate change and they think it's something that you can not believe in?
I mean, personally, I don't know very many people who don't understand that climate change is a reality.
Uh-huh.
And if they do think that, they don't voice that opinion in front of me, because they know that I wasn't very strong in my convictions, and two, don't mind standing up for them.
Right.
But I think the main thing for me that I've been noticing is, like, for the first, like, I feel like I've always thought of myself as someone like, oh yeah, I really care about the environment. I understand that climate change is an issue that's impacting me, but sort of going through this whole just understanding more about sustainability, and just like the small choices that I can make. I think the main thing that I've been able to see is seeing the people around me change their habits because they see me changing my habits. I went to one of my mom's best friends' 60th birthday and also his retirement party, and his wife said, she told me afterwards, they had all these reusable plates and cutlery and stuff that they had rented, and his wife told me that she was thinking, oh, well, Ruby's coming, so I know we can't use disposable anything. So we have to get this. Or then when people come over to my house and they bring over food, they're like, oh, we went to go to the bulk section because we couldn't think of anything else to bring you. And just hearing how, if you see someone just consistently making choices, that can impact the way that you're thinking about how you're living your own life in a way that's way more suggestive and not as confrontational as saying, hey, you're wrong, you can't use that straw or whatever.
Right.
That is
Getting
so true.
someone defensive is not it's not helping your case, because in the end, is someone going to feel excited about trying to reduce their waste if they've been shamed into doing it,
Yeah.
I think the main thing is to have activism come out of a space of not only negative emotions of fear, of shame, of anger, but to come out of one of appreciation and love and excitement,
Yeah.
I'm not just afraid that my future is going to not be what I want it to be, but I'm excited because I know that I have a chance to change the way that it'll look in the future.
Nice. Yeah, setting an example, that's really, it's very strong when you live, your life in a way that honors your beliefs and other people see that, and it's having an impact. That's so great.
It's that whole idea of pointing positive too. What is it that we want? What is our vision? What is, we love our oceans, we love our ecosystems, and to keep that in mind too as we're facing these challenges, I think is also helpful. Yeah,
rather than focusing on the thing that's wrong, let's focus the energy on how we want it to appear, how we want it to show up. Yeah. Very good.
We don't have time to discuss it, but I just want to go back to something that Greta said. Our house is on fire. I just want to know, we only have 5 minutes and probably less, but, one thing it's nice to, talk about the, I'm driving less, etc. But, I read today that there are 26% fewer birds flying around. That was astonishing.
I think it's important to take the time to grieve and to be sad about it and to really feel it. That it can be also what fuels the desire to act. If you really look at the hard stuff that's going on. So that's an important facet of it too for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of extinction happening. And it is sad.
Well, Ruby, listening to you, I can tell that you are a leader and you're going to make an impact. So I'm glad that you called in.
Yeah, thank you, Ruby.
Of course. I'm so glad I was able to join in the conversation.
Me too.
See you around the West Marin neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to wrap it up. Is there any one last thing you want to say? Oh,
I think the main thing is just to trust in the power of yourself and to trust, and to also trust that the young people who are out here doing the work are doing it because they feel like they need to, and that it's not just the young people's responsibility to protect their future, but it's everyone's responsibility.
Very good.
Right on.
Well, thank you, Ruby, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, everybody. Thank you, Kristen, for coming in today and sharing.
This has been great. We need to have more of these kinds of conversations.
We do.
Yeah.
Oh, just a plug. Bing Gong is planning a series of events coming up, so be looking for those. All about climate change and raising awareness.
And what we can do here locally, right?
Right.
Is that the focus?
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And we'll be back next Thursday. We'll
figure out what we're talking about.
Figure out what the topic will be.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, everybody.